Hey everyone, Brandon Taves here. I'm the product director here at Drumeo and the author of the brand new drum book called The Drummer's Toolbox. Now, I'm so excited to announce that this book is finally available on Amazon and in the Drumeo drum shop. And this book is all about how to play 101 different styles on the drums. So today in this lesson, I just want to give you a little snippet of what's inside the book and show you 5 drumming styles that I know you've never heard before. So with all of that, let's dive straight into the lesson and get started with the first one. So the first drumming style I want to introduce to you is called the flat tire shuffle. Now this is also known as the back shuffle or the upbeat shuffle. So in this groove, we're going to be accenting the third note of every triplet grouping. Now, for now, I'm just going to play steady quarter notes on the bass drum, and I'm going to be accenting that third note of every grouping on the snare drum, so you can really hear how that sounds in relation to a steady quarter note pulse. Here's what that sounds like. So we're going to be playing a standard blues shuffle ride cymbal pattern over here with our right hand. And once we've got that going, we're going to add in the snare drum on every third note of the triplet grouping. Here's what that sounds like. So now I'm going to play that same pattern, but I'm going to show you how that sounds in comparison to playing just a steady 2 and 4 backbeat on the snare drum. So you can really compare those two. So now the last step is just to add in the bass drum, which we're just going to be playing on steady quarter notes like I showed you earlier. And we're going to add in the hi-hat foot on 2 and 4. Now I'm going to do this slowly at 100 beats per minute, and then a little bit quicker at 120 beats per minute with the metronome. Here we go. There's way more variations of this groove that I've included in the Drummer's Toolbox, so you can check those out there. But I also want you to go check out 2 recordings of this groove, and one is Every Day I Have the Blues by B.B. King, and the other is Back at the Chicken Shack by Jimmy Smith. And there you can hear 2 drummers who actually play this in a blues context. So with all that being said, let's move on to the second drumming style that you haven't heard, which is called Zouk. So Zouk is a style of music that originated in the early 1980s on the Caribbean islands of Guadeloupe and Martinique. Now this is a really unique style of music because it fuses elements of calypso music, Beguine music, and other West African music all together into one unique style. So when you listen to this style of music, you'll hear that most of these songs actually use drum machines. So when we're playing these grooves on the kit, we're going to be emulating what's going on really by the drum machines and electronic drums that you hear in these recordings. Characteristic of electronic music, we're going to be playing a 4 on the floor bass drum pattern. We're going to be playing a pretty standard Afro-Caribbean cross-stick pattern, which you'll hear in other styles like calypso. And then we're going to be playing a pretty syncopated hi-hat pattern as well. So really slowly, the hi-hat pattern is going to sound like this. So it's a 16th note pattern. You're going to find some accents in there, and you'll see how those other 2 limbs line up in between that hi-hat pattern. The next step is going to be to add in the cross stick. So I prefer to do this with the butt end of the stick actually playing the cross stick, and that kind of gets just a fuller cross stick sound. So let's play just the hands together, and then we'll add in the bass drum afterwards. So the last step here is just to add in that 4 on the floor bass drum pattern. So I'm going to do this slowly first at 80 beats per minute, and then take it up a little bit to 95. Let's hear how that sounds. So there you have it. That's how to play a style called Zouk. And 2 bands that you can check out if you really want to get into this style are the bands Kassav and the band Zouk Machine. Now let's move on to the 3rd style, which is called Afuche. So Afuche is the next style we're going to be looking at here, and this is a very, very old style of music that actually developed out of an ancient tradition that can be traced all the way back to the Yoruba people of West Africa. Now, the main rhythm that they actually played in these ceremonies was called the Ajaisha rhythm, or just Ajaisha. So first we're going to start with the Ajaisha rhythm, and then I'm going to show you how to actually create a groove based around that rhythm. So the Ajaisha rhythm is based on 16th notes and 8th notes. And I'm going to play it for you really slowly here so you can hear how it sounds just on the hi-hats. Okay, so that's 1 E and A, 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 E and A, 2 E and 3 and 4 and. So what's really cool about this rhythm is that traditionally it was played on agogo bells or on 2 cowbells that had different pitches. Now, I don't have agogo bells or cowbells on my kit here, so we're going to apply this onto the ride cymbal between the bell of the cymbal and the bow of the cymbal. So let's hear what the Ajaisha rhythm sounds like when we play it between the bell and the bow of the ride cymbal. So that's what the Ajaisha rhythm sounds like when we're playing it between 2 different parts of the cymbal. Now, if you have any percussion on your kit or agogo bells or cowbells, feel free to try that there as well. But for now, let's stick with the ride cymbal, and we're going to add in the next part, which is the cross stick pattern. Now, we're going to be playing just steady quarter notes with the cross stick alongside this Ajaisha rhythm that's being played between the bell and the bow. So let's hear how those 2 parts sound together. So now let's add in the hi-hat foot, which is going to be played on steady quarter notes alongside the cross stick pattern. So these 2 limbs here are going to be totally locked in and in sync. The last step is to add in the bass drum. Now, this part is a little bit tricky once you have all these other 3 limbs happening at the same time. So our bass drum is going to be on 2 and 4 and. So let's try this really slowly, and then we're going to put it together with a metronome. Now let's try this with a metronome at 80 and 100 beats per minute. So there you have it. That is the Afro-Brazilian style called Afuche. Now, if you do have two cowbells on your kit or you want to go pick two of those up, feel free to try this groove out between two different surfaces, and you'll really hear how cool that sounds. Now let's move on to the fourth one, which is called Poinciana. So this next style is called Poinciana, and this is a really, really cool drumming style. And I first heard this on the song March of the Sad Ones by a jazz guitarist by the name of Gilad Hexelman. And his drummer, Marcus Gilmore, who's one of my personal favorites, he was playing this groove on that song. So originally, this groove was played by Vernal Fournier on Ahmad Jamal's arrangement of the song Poinciana in the late 1950s. And what's really cool about the way that he played this groove on the original track was he played it open-handed, so left hand playing on the ride cymbal and right hand playing on the snare drum. And he also had his snares turned off. And the third thing he did was he actually played his snare drum with a felt mallet. So when we play this groove, we're going to use, I have here, it's a stick with a regular drumstick on one end and a felt mallet on the other end. So we're going to turn our snares off, and we're going to use this stick in our right hand and a regular one in the left hand. So to start this groove off, we're going to be playing our ride cymbal with our left hand on beats 2 and beat 4. So just like this, 1, 3, 1, 3. Just on 2 and 4 like that. We're going to be playing our left foot alongside that in complete unison. 1, 3. Now on beats 1 and beat 3 in the first bar, we're going to be playing the bass drum. And then in the second bar, we're going to be playing the bass drum on beats 1, beats 3, and beat 4. So let's hear how that sounds like with just the bass drum, and then our ride cymbal and hi-hats, which are totally lined up. So the last step is to add in what our right hand is doing on the snare drum and on the floor tom. So our right hand is going to be playing obviously with the felt mallet, and we're going to be playing on 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, 4. So we're going to play that last quarter note beat on the floor tom. Now I'm going to play this really slowly all together with all the other limbs so you can really hear how this sounds, and then we'll put it together with a metronome at 80 and 100 beats per minute. So there you have it. That is the Poinciana groove. Go check out the recordings March of the Sad Ones by Gilad Hexelman, and go check out Ahmad Jamal's arrangement of the actual song Poinciana, and you can actually hear how this groove sounds like in its original form. Now we're going to move on to the last drumming style, which is a really cool one called Gogo. Now, this developed in the late 60s and early 70s in Washington, D.C., and it merges elements of soul music, funk music, and hip-hop. So what's really cool about this style is that the 16th notes in all of these grooves are going to be played as swung 16th notes, or 16th note triplets. So to demo this, first, here's what straight 16th notes sound like. Now let's have a listen to what swung 16th notes sound like. So with go-go music, apart from understanding the swung feel, the main thing that we need to know is the snare drum and bass drum pattern. Now, all of these grooves are actually, you can figure them out because of this snare drum and bass drum pattern. So here's what it sounds like. So we're going to be playing that snare drum and bass drum rhythm underneath our hi-hat pattern. Now let's take this with a metronome at 80 and 100 beats per minute. So there you have it. That is the fifth and final style I want to talk about today, which is called go-go. Now, if you want to dive deeper into this style of music, I would recommend checking out Chuck Brown, Trouble Funk, and Experience Unlimited. Those are three artists who will really help you become familiar with this style of music, and you'll really be able to hear that snare drum and bass drum pattern in all of their music. So there you have it. Those are 5 styles that you've probably never heard before. I know at one point they were pretty new to me. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, my brand new book called The Drummer's Toolbox is going to walk you through 101 different styles of drumming. You're going to learn about the history of each style, you're going to learn how to build some vocabulary, and you're going to find 1,000 recommended recordings that you can actually listen to and learn from the masters of each style. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and I hope you enjoy The Drummer's Toolbox. See you later.